Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser.
And I'm Johnny B.
I'm Brush and Quill.
I'm Gamer Dom.
But together we are
Morning War Advantage. Quality. So here we are again with our beautiful and handsome young friend, Gamer Dom. But before we get to that, what's everybody going to be up to tonight? Me, I am going to be putting some basing material on these lovely goals that I've slowly been working on. And if you see me licking this brush, that's PVA, and that was a really bad idea.
Nice. I am working on the first 9 of the Spartan dudes for Mortal Gods. That's what I'm doing. So I've got some hoplites on the desk. That's what I'm doing. Callum, what are you up to, sir?
I'll flick this light on so you can see.
Ah!
I'm waiting for the wash to dry on my steam tank.
Oh, this is that thing you cobbled together.
Well, that was the thing you did the video on. That's really interesting.
So I won't. Okay, that works that way. I won't be working on it until it's dry, unfortunately. So I shall.
I've got a little tiddly one to go with it. Look at that. That's a T-70 Russian tank.
Oh wow!
Little Russian and little early war Russian tank. That's what I'm going to be fiddling around with.
Is that a 156 one, a bolt action scale one?
It is a bolt action scale, which looks pretty damn tiny, doesn't it? But that is that is one of it. Yeah. So I'm on a mission at the moment to work through some of my stash, my backlog, and I thought, well, this is a good thing to work on. I'm going to work on this one. And I've got a couple of others just in case I speed through it.
Okay. Well, so. If you don't know, Dom is going to introduce himself in a moment. John?
It's the time again, you see, where Dom, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want you to answer them immediately. Firstly, who's your daddy, and what does he do?
Who was that? Was that Arnie? Yeah. He'll be back. Well, yeah, I'm Dom, and people will know me from Boots on the Table with Dom, which is my wargaming channel, primarily historical stuff. So I started off a couple of years ago now, just sort of running through basically what I do in the hobby. So as I went down and played games, I'd take the video camera down and film it, and then edit it and stick it up there, and then do a little bit of painting videos and unboxing stuff, and it sort of escalated a bit, but just kind of got a bit out of hand, really. I think is the easiest way to put it. But you'll also know me from the Monday night Plastic Crack podcast. So that's the 4 of us who do that every Monday night, 8 p.m. UK time, just talking rubbish about the hobby, and people seem to love it. So it's just great fun just to talk about things, which is kind of all I do, just really chat about the hobby and the sort of things I get up to and the models I've seen, and try and help people along on their journey as they try and enjoy the hobby. As a more old timer in the hobby, a bit like Kaiser, trying to encourage new people to pick it up and have a try, really.
Right, well, there's probably nobody here that doesn't know you. And if you haven't seen the Plastic Crack podcast on a Monday night, is it? I always get this wrong. Is it 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
It's 8 o'clock. 2 hours from 8 o'clock every Monday.
It's like this, but imagine this, but a more pro version with more interesting people. That's basically what it is. They got a really good mix of topics there, and it's 2 hours long. All right, just having a quick look. Obviously, we're reaching a point now where we're struggling to get through all the comments. I will mostly be looking at the comments. And sometimes I'll be miming responses to people, so you know how you've been. We had a nice opening comment from somebody before the show. Axe and Axe can't be here. Paul is painting the Mighty Missouri, which is a Victory at Sea thing, and I noticed some of your guys getting into that now, Dom.
Yeah, Ken's seriously into it, and he's sort of hooked me into it as well. So I'm really enjoying it. It's good fun. Nice little models. They're pretty good. They're Warlords stuff, and they're pretty good scale, really easy to paint. Of course, proof of the pudding will be actually playing games, but when we can do that, we'll see how good the game is. But the models are great fun, really good fun.
Wargaming with Gary there admiring your shirt,
I
Dom.
know Gary's another Quins fan, so he'll be admiring
Is that what it is? So the Victrix, I haven't got one to hand to show them. Is an interesting one because it's another one of these games that sort of was being really interrupted and interfered with because of lockdown, isn't it? It kind of got it had pre-launch hype. People were getting like tester sets out and a few videos, and then it got delayed by months and months. And there was a lot of bad press at the time about the basing for it. They're pre-based and in resin. And I really wish I had one to show you at the moment.
Yeah, so do I. We would have been better organised if I'd had one. I haven't got one to hand. But anyway, I know what you mean, and I have to put my hand up and say I was one of those people who looked at those and said, Jesus, it's a hovercraft. I mean, it just looks like a spare tire around the outside of the things.
Yeah.
It's a substantial bit of base, isn't it?
It really is. But actually, I've changed my opinion somewhat on it. I think they're okay, particularly on the bigger ships. When you get down to the sort of destroyers, because it goes right from the Yamato, the super battleship, down to, well, you can even get submarines and aircraft. And at the top end, at the big battleships and the battle cruisers and those sort of things, you don't even notice the base because the ship's pretty big, So it's I guess the good thing about it is it's got the name very clearly written on the outside, so you can identify it on the table, which is probably why they've done it. I still think it's a little bit too much for the smaller ships.
I wondered because there's some depth to it. It basically looks like they're on a watery plinth, doesn't it? Almost like they're a toy model. But I did find, like, when I first looked at them, my gut reaction was, "Oh, I don't like the look of that." And then I was just kind of handling the models and thinking they're really nicely cast. And I'm someone who had like old Skytrex metal ships years ago, and they're not that clean. Their ships like both sides of that straight. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't that tidy. They've done a good job of trying to recreate the kind of superstructure of the ship, but it just didn't have those lovely straight lines. But I did find the more I handled the ships, like other wargaming conventions, I think it was a new convention that you're not familiar with. It looks really different to what you're used to.
Yeah.
But actually, what is, before that, people would have, I don't know, like MDF bases, and they'd have little plaques on the bottom of them with the names, like a little strip at the bottom. That's just as bizarre.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that was the thing I kind of, when I thought about it, or actually when I saw the first ships, I thought, that makes sense. It kind of works. And when you're sitting there, they paint up a dream because they're all molded like a ship cutting through the water. So that is nice and fun to do. They're really easy to do. And when you put them on a green mat, on a blue mat, they'll look really good, I'm sure. So
yes. Andy Hilton, last week's winner, evening champs. Chaplin arrived, but no Jay Bizzle tears. Sorry about that. Or pubes, thankfully. I'm not sure I want this to become a regular question for guests. You probably didn't see it, Don, but one of the things that Johnny B put forward last year was if you ever get a collection of secondhand miniatures, like loose in a box, as well as a useless paintbrush and a biro that's missing the ink out of it or whatever, and a paperclip, there is always an errant pubic hair in there. And he was just putting it out there. Was that other people's experiences as well? Someone commented on the video afterwards. He said, "It's funny because whenever I buy pubes from a thrift shop, it always comes with a Space Marine in it."
Do you reckon like Warlords have those little names of who's packed it? There's a department that puts a pube in every time or something.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, there's a sitcom right there.
What would we call it? Mirella's pubes.
Oh man. She just seems to do a lot of the packing over there at Warlord, doesn't she, Mirella?
She's busy. That's probably her hair's falling out from all the energy she's expending. That's all I'm saying.
To say, puts a whole new spin on Are You Being Served?
I love the fact you've reached the tone already. Love it.
Well,
that's my job.
That wasn't me. That wasn't even me this time.
It was based on something you had brought up previously, though.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Superb.
Yeah. Right, Duncan, thank you. We do have a giveaway tonight, but I have found that if I do it this early in the show, we never catch up with the opening comments. Sorry, James Workshop was going to be with us tonight. He's had, some issues at home and what have you. So he's not able to be here. He's got to take care of a family member. Everybody's going to be fine, but he just, didn't have the available time this evening. All right then. So do you want to? I think I'm pretty much on top of it then, John. So just so that the comments can go mental for a moment.
You're going to do it. This
week's giveaway. So what we've got for you is some of the Victrix. I sent an email to Victrix in a kind of, can we have a trade account and can you send us some samples to do stuff? And they sent us some of their 144th new, which is 12 mil, I guess.
12 mil, it says. Stick it on the doofer.
12 mil, it says, yeah. Because 1/72 is 20 mil, isn't it? That's the FX scale. So anyway, these are a bit smaller than the kind of if you've had Flames of War stuff. They're really cute looking.
They're really, really cute.
And we are going to give you a sprue away. Are there 2 tanks on the sprue, John?
2 tanks on a sprue. 2 Cromwell.
All tanks on a sprue.
In a bag. 2 on a sprue.
As Johnny B demonstrated. Did you we're gonna have a video reviewing this, by the way, but John, did you get to build one and stuff?
I did make one. Did he?
I reckon you can get away with 10 mil with that. I reckon you get away in 10 mil infantry.
Definitely.
Well, they do infantry as well.
The infantry are really nice looking. Did he? But really good fidelity regards to the detailing on them. I'm going to have a look at those tomorrow, I think.
Hello, you Jordy?
Is that Mrs. Prussian Quill? Or are you
Mrs. Prussian Quill?
A housekeeper?
I know, you all thought she didn't exist, didn't you?
I thought it was just an excuse you had, saying like, if my house is untidy, it's the missus, That was just an excuse you were working on. So, John, if they want to win the Cromwell as tonight's 2 Cromwells, 2, what do they need to do, mate?
Mate, you're making me think of a word. I don't know. Dom, you're historically accurate at things. I don't know what that has anything to do with this.
What?
But, what?
Well, I was tempted to say pubes, but maybe we say quins. How about that? Quins. As in the Mighty Quins. In honour of the shirt that I'm wearing. There you go. The Mighty Quins.
In honour of our guests. That is a rugby team for those of you that don't know.
It is a rugby team for those who don't know.
So if you want to win a pair of 1/104th Victrix Cromwells, you need to say in the comments, Quins.
I wonder if we get 0 comments out of, the fact that nobody likes them, whoever they are.
Do you think it's a reflection of the team rather than the giveaway? Possibly.
Yeah,
they're playing all right this season. So I know Gary.
Gary Counter's already entered.
Yeah, Gary will be there. That's for sure.
Wins!
There you go. So
Duncan should enter. He's got some 10 mil World War II.
There we go. Team Clueless Games. That would be Nick's.
I do like the look of those 10 mils. I think they look really interesting, or 12 mils or whatever they are. They look really interesting.
Yeah.
Trouble is the thought of getting my eyesight wrapped around painting them. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, my motor functions struggled with putting the damn thing together, as you will see in a upcoming video.
10 mil tanks are easy. You paint it green, slap a bit of metal on there, and give it a wash.
The tank I'm not worried about. It's the infantry I'm worried about. That's the bit I'm worried about.
I think it could be a similar method. Put a dot of flesh.
I did recently buy some in the Kickstarter a 6 mil samurai. And I keep looking at them and I keep going, what was I thinking of?
All right. Let's talk about Kickstarter for a moment there, because what you're talking about there is exactly why I don't go anywhere near Kickstarter, because you get £100 payment on some tat like that.
Well,
and it turns up 18 months later, and there's a washing machine sized box of something that you're like,
what the hell was I doing? I can't even say I was drunk, because obviously it goes on for months, so you can't have that excuse for months. Even I don't get drunk that long. And I can blame Martin though, my seventh son Martin, because he was trying to get me into it, and we saw this Kickstarter. In fact, he pointed it out to me, and that, in all honesty, they are beautiful figures. I mean, they, you know, for $6 if you get a magnifying glass on them, they are really well detailed. I'm amazed how good they are.
Glass on them.
And my naivety, I just thought, well, I'll just whack them out. No, and I probably could if I could just get my head around doing them. It's just samurais, and I'm not really sure necessarily, you know, that I like the idea of the period, but I've never painted that period ever. It's one of the few periods I've never done. And then so the combination of that and these little diddy things is like, they're sitting on my painting table, and I just keep going, I must do them, but I can't summon up the energy to do it. One day.
I found painting the $6 guys for India. I found that you pick a core color, in this case the red jackets, make that look good, and then the rest of it's all just base color wash.
Well, that's
you only highlight one bit.
I saw your great mutiny stuff. Not mutiny, is it? Sorry. The Indian
Wars.
Yeah.
I saw all that stuff. That's it, Maharajas, and I really liked it. And I thought that looks really, and as you say, it looks simple to do. But I guess I've got so fixated in doing 28mm as I haven't done anything else for so long. Just that transition into doing something, and maybe I should have weaned myself off and done 18mm or something first, and then worked my way down the pile to 6mm, jumping from 28.
But if there aren't enough scales to pick from, who's doing? Is it Leon T66 has been doing a Dutch Napoleonic army in 18mm?
Yeah.
It's like, have you got anyone to play against?
Well, I mean, Leon's got his own rule set, hasn't he? So he not only has he got his own armies, he's got his own rule set. So he just my figures, I'll do what I want, right?
he sculpts his own figures as well.
Does he? Oh my god!
Yeah, he did some lancers for somewhere, I can't remember where, and he's been working for the last year and a bit on Napoleonic British Marines.
Oh no! You know how I draw from a cup? I've been putting it on the
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Bro move.
We were saying about Martin in his cup of tea.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Oh my god.
That is brilliant. Well done, Kaiser. Well done.
You can't beat a live show, right? So I'm going to go back through the comments and was doing a really good job of staying on top of this. If you just arrived and you missed it, we have got a Victrix 12mm Cromwell sprue, which is 2 tanks, which Johnny B will show you. We're going to have to get you like a sequined leotard if you're going to do this regular, I reckon, John. If you want to win it, you need to say Quins in there, because that is Dom's favorite rugby team and the thing he's been showing. The shirt he's wearing, and I'm going to try and catch up with that.
All the time you bought yourself is gone.
Yeah. So 28mm then, Dom, because obviously you've been in the wargaming scene for more than a week or two.
Just a few, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You probably go back at least as far as I do in terms of you predate DBA and all of that foolishness.
Yep.
You played WRG rules and tables and
fourth edition, mate, for me. Fourth edition.
I got involved in 6th, and I was still at school, I can proudly say. So I might have a few more summers. But so you've seen the kind of history of the way that we've based and played our games. But more recently, I've noticed a lot of the games that you play, and although you're still doing 28mm, you tend to be newer figures, you're painting them on like 25mm rounds and putting them in movement trays, which is quite a different look to those armies to kind of shoulder to shoulder on square bases that we more traditionally had.
Yeah, I guess it's like everybody else, really. I'm driven entirely by the people I play against and with, and so what people are playing around the club or online at the moment, whatever it is, I tend to be moved by that. And so generally rules seem to have moved very much down the skirmishy type direction, and so therefore you tend to use single based, generally round based, I don't know why that is, figures. But then I also like to have the flexibility to use them in other systems. So like all the Napoleonics I've got, I play a lot of sharp practice where you need them individually based, and hopefully muskets and tomahawks soon when they bring out their Napoleonic version, again singly based, because you need to be able to remove casualties and break them out into skirmish formations and that kind of stuff. But then I also like playing black powder where you want them en masse. So putting them in a movement tray gives you that flexibility. So, when I started doing an army, I think it was an AWI, American War of Independence Army, I did exactly that, the right build. It gives you those stages to go through. So we were playing sharp practice. So I built sharp practice, and then you could use it for the other systems. So, yeah.
It seems very much like the Lardies have all their stuff based that way, don't they?
Yeah.
And I was watching an interview with the guy who did Mortal Gods, and he was moaning at one of his fellow gamers about how he was really old school and wasn't ready to move to 25mm rounds. For me, though, when I look at something like, particularly something like Napoleonics, it just does, basing them on 25mm rounds like that, they do look weird to me. I've got to say, I look at them and say, there's a lot of space between these guys.
Yeah, I think you're right. I actually, for Napoleonics, we tend to use the smaller one, 20mm,
right,
which is a little bit better. But it's not like I've also got, which I haven't used for years, a massive collection of 15mm figures, and they are literally based in a line together, and and sort of much more how when you read accounts of Napoleonic period of guys walking shoulder to shoulder into combat, that's sort of how it looks. So I guess it's what you get your brain round, and you don't want to fight against the system. Sorry,
I think you're saying about that's in 15mm, because like the 6mm figures have got come on a strip of 6 figures.
Yeah,
they are molded shoulder to shoulder. So I think as you go down the scale and you're not dealing with individual figures so much, you're more likely to get that more close ranks.
Exactly.
The one that I don't like is how singular based figures don't get shield walls right. You can't get that closeness, whereas if you put them on a multi base, you can position them to do it.
Yeah, but the whole thing about any kind of gaming system, it's a simulation, right? And I guess it's how you choose to do it. Now, I've known people who built proper shield walls, so when their troops go into shield wall, in fact, I think there's a manufacturer where you can buy, a proper shield wall of figures, and you just swap them out, put them down. But it's each to their own, right? I'm quite happy to
well, I think Warlord do the Testudo, don't they?
They do, yeah. That's a really nice model, isn't it?
I keep meaning to buy that at some point, just as a painting piece, just to put it in my cabinet.
Well, yeah. I think also it's about frontages as well, isn't it? I mean, I've just got into or starting to get into this new Franco-Prussian wars system
that's right, guys. He's painting Frenchmen.
I am painting French. Yeah, shock horror. Exclusive for the channel. No, it's not exclusive.
Outrageous. We've witnessed Napoleon that follow your channel. We have witnessed the slow erosion to this point. You started with that Confederation of the Rhine, and you embraced that there was going to be some units in the core that were not German, and we could see it coming. But we could also hear your ancestors groaning, sir. And the spirits will be roused to anger, I'm sure.
you know, it's one of those jokes that continued from the physical world into the digital world. So, you know, down the club, I always had this reputation that, you know, everyone's, you know, when you go down the club on a Friday night or whatever night you meet, or when we used to meet in clubs, remember that. And someone says, "Oh, what side do you want to play?" And I go, "Oh, I don't care, anything but French." And
Anything
it just became a
but
bit of an in joke. You know, so then when it
even if you were playing like Indian Mutiny or something, there's no French in this game. That's your answer.
Exactly. Didn't matter what it was. You know, it's a Second World War Eastern Front army. I'll play anything but but French. You know,
Anything but French.
So just
American Civil War. Anything but French.
Exactly. And it just sort of continued really. So and then Ken, of course, thought that was hilarious. So we just sort of kept it going. And
whereas now,
I mean, generally, sorry,
I was going to say, now he dresses up as a Marshal of France.
He does indeed, yes.
That's his cosplay, mate.
I was going to say, Frost and Fist has said, "What's wrong with painting Frenchmen?" To which my answer is, "Have you never seen Titanic? Paint me like one of your French girls."
They never stand still long enough to paint them. That's the problem. They was running around.
French. Yeah. Students,
no, I will do some French. I will do some French, and I have done some French, as you say. The Franco-Prussians are proof of that. But no, I was saying about them, they have a really weird basing system, which I've never seen before.
Go on.
So they have a unit in that system is 7 figures strong. And they base them, or they tell you to base them on 3 of them on a 40 mil circle, and then the other 2s on a 30 mil circle. So if you see what I mean? So you have a big group of 3, a bigger group of 3, and then 2 small groups of 2. And that's your 7. But I thought that's just really crazy. They're 28 mil figures. So the 3 looks really crammed on. But then you remove them so they kind of have a unit strength. So of 3. So when you remove a whole stand when you finished, I just thought, no, I don't like that idea. So I based them on 20 mil. But just weird stuff.
That sounds trying to get you to base your miniatures specifically for their game.
Yeah,
I would think so. Yeah,
and their bases,
yeah.
and I utterly despise that. So I'd said in a previous video, show that we had, about around rules and so forth, and I'm not a big fan of rule systems. No, I positively dislike rule systems which are different. You know, I don't know. They don't. If you have like a hit number and a kill number in a skirmish game, then I know a lot about the system before we begin. And if you don't have that, then your game needs to be better than that, and it often isn't. It's often just different. And I don't like that investment in time to get to a point where I realize a game isn't very good, personally. and I definitely have real problems where there are elements of games that really shoehorn you into playing their game with this stuff only. It's got a very kind of Games Workshop feel to it. You know, using like underhand tactics to force you into our game system.
32 mil rounds.
32 mil round bases, yeah. But I mean, their miniatures are so iconic that I think you really struggle to use them in anything else and feel that it was the right thing to do. Certainly for me, anyway. Because they're doing, you'll be excited about this, John. They're doing Stargrave now, aren't they?
They are.
It's Frostgrave in space.
Yes, from Osprey.
Somebody posted plastics. There's North Star doing plastics for it.
Yeah, they got a little plastics kit or 2 coming out for that. They're kind of cool. I like generic sci-fi shenanigans, so I'm gonna have a look once they have actually unveiled some of the pictures already. I've not followed it up. Have they got any more stuff out of recent?
No, I think that they've announced this.
Yeah, I think it's just previews because it was just like the picture of a leg.
Oh right. Okay.
They look a lot like the legs off the Melt Caskin.
Okay.
So if that's how they look, they're going to look very sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently it's the same but different, so that's cool, right?
Yeah, again, I think Guerrilla Miniatures must get like preview copies from Osprey, review copies, because he's already got a video out. You know, he's already got a copy of the book. He may just know the writer or something. And it looks quite similar. But you're playing like a mercenary band, I think. It looks interesting.
That's right. Yeah, it's similar stations. So you've got your wizard, which is your captain, and then you've got your first mate and various specialists. So it's a similar setup as to Frostgrave in itself. But I think there's a few different. Obviously, there's no magic in space, but you've got certain skills and bits and bobs that you still have target numbers that you need to activate them. And I don't mind that system. I don't know. I know you're mostly not a fan, Kaiser. We did dabble with Frostgrave. Yeah.
I was interested in the idea. No, it was more. I was thinking like, we could just use that Warhammer miniatures and have a go. And then thinking, Warhammer miniatures look like Warhammer miniatures.
Well, that is true.
I was thinking I have to find an old Ground Zero Games catalog and get some proper like random 25mm miniatures.
Nice.
I used to have quite a bit of that stuff. I think I still do. 15mm science fiction was something that Don was saying and Callum said before. When you play what people in your community play, and I used to play with guys when I was younger who were much more into sci-fi in the old school dirt side type hammer slammers and that kind of thing. Was more the sci-fi that inspired them. Hack sci-fi from the 70s, basically, rather than new movies.
I think Ground Zero still does dirt side, doesn't it?
I think dirt side, Star Grunt, Full Thrust, they've all got version 2 with a lot more polish now. I played the rubbish old ones where you got a bit of cardboard was your book binding. And it's just like, Xeroxed and stapled $2.99 at the Wargames show or whatever. That's
awesome.
What Wargames was used to be.
Well, that's great though, because now they probably charge you £30, whereas it was about
yeah. And now it's got a glossy cover and
pretty pictures and what have you. But you still don't open the rules, which is what I do.
Just going back to what Johnny was saying about it being Frostgrave, I have to say that is something I dislike about games. It's when this is our gaming system, but in space, or this is our gaming system, but fantasy.
Yeah, I just think you need to get out more often, Callum. It's just a game.
Brutal,
For me, it goes back to what Kaiser said about time investment. I don't want to have to learn, especially with my brain and the way it is at the moment. I don't want to have to learn new rule sets every time I want to play a game. So having that familiarity of a core rule set with a different lean on it, a different tack on, then I'm cool with that. But yeah, I really struggle to every system being different, which just blow my mind.
I mean, the core mechanics can be the same, but it's just how similar are the peripherals.
How would you have liked, as an example, Stargrave to be? Assuming you're familiar with Frostgrave.
I'm not, but the bit that puts me up when you say things like you have a wizard for a captain.
It's
like, yeah, I know, it's just your phrasing. I know it's just your phrasing.
Wizard manual.
It's just your phrasing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. He's not actually a wizard. I was just saying, like, it was in comparison to Frostgrave. Frostgrave, the core the core warband layout is a wizard, his apprentice. The sci-fi one is the captain, his first mate. That's what I meant. So it's a very similar setup. But I'm pretty sure they have wriggled in some different mechanics in the game and bits and bobs, hopefully enough to make it slightly different, but with the same core mechanics. I hope. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not saying that it was the same. I'm just saying that's something I dislike.
Oh yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool.
I don't have many slips this week, guys. Even checking the ones that fell in the Muggerty. If you want to win a sprue of 12mm Victrix Cromwell tanks, then you need to say Quins. Quin. Is it double N, Dom? Or what?
Double N. Yeah.
Double NS. And we will post it to you anywhere in the world, mate. Look at that. They are cute little models.
You need to do like late night TV.
So, Frost and Fist brought up the monster in the room, which is GURPS. So there is a problem with GURPS, and I went through a phase of being quite the fan. I have got about 30 GURPS manuals over here, including quite the adventures in GURPS Traveller for a while. And you know what the problem with GURPS is? For those of you that don't know, the generic and universal role-playing system, the idea with it was just learn one system and it'll do everything. And that is true. And once you've learned that system, you don't need to learn other systems, play anything else. The problem with it is that system happens to be crap. It's the problem with GURPS. It's hideously complicated so that it can cover all of these ideas, from magic to psionics to vehicle movement to spaceship combat. It ends up being this incredibly kind of 80s number heavy points based system. And yeah, I was role playing with a group of people who knew the system, so it was worth it. But starting from scratch, I would never invest the time in learning a system like that.
So, I know nothing about what you talk of, but
role playing, sir.
Oh, no, D&D was my thing when I was about knee high to I don't know what. But no, I'm intrigued by the whole principle of one set fits all. Yeah. Because to me, that as a historical gamer, that's a bit of an anathema. It's like you want the flavor, you want the variety, you want the fact that the French get kicked every time they try and charge the British line in Napoleonics, and then that kind of stuff. So. I'm intrigued by the sheer. My gut instinct is to not want a system that would be that. The same system that works in any kind of period or.
Black powder. You've got black powder that covers all sorts, doesn't it?
But
exactly the same system.
It's true, but then there is quite a lot of variety within the different versions of it. So if you look at Pike and Shot, for instance, that is. Same principle, right, but it's different in quite a way. And some people would argue it isn't different enough.
Yeah, Pike and Shot and Hail Caesar are basically the same game, aren't they?
It's the basic principle is the same. Yeah. You would be familiar with it, but it's not to the same degree. Is that? I suppose. Yeah, maybe I'm just talking myself out of it there. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I was getting at. The core mechanics are the same. It's a very familiar system. It's the same to hit, to roll.
Yeah.
To wound and everything. But yeah, no, I do agree with you about you do need a little bit of a spice up if it's a different thing. That's going back to the Frostgrave, Stargrave thing. I hope that there are different mechanics in there, just not radically different mechanics in there, different skills and bits and bobs. Yeah, that's it really. The end. Vader all day.
There you go. Now, because given what you just said there, Dom, about also about talking yourself out there, how many different sets of WRG rules did you use to play just about every period of history, and how really different were they?
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right to a degree, but I don't know. I think it's the nuances that you build around it, isn't it? It's the sort of extras that they build in. So I completely agree with you. Having that familiarity around, the core mechanics. Like, I'm going to need a 4 to hit on every system, and then you just, is it a spiky thing or is it a shooty thing? It adds something different, or that kind of stuff. It is interesting, but I think what I think moves the rule system on from that is whether there's enough nuance around it to allow the system to be still familiar but be different at the same time. So, for instance, Pike and Shot, I talked about it just now, but Pike and Shot, you've got the whole thing about, musketeers, if they get charged, they'll run back behind or to the support of their pikemen, because that's what they did in the period. And it's part of the rule system built in, you got the dismounted dragoons and what have you that do act in a very different way to other troop types because that's what they do. The cannons aren't as effective as they are later on in the Napoleonic period, for instance. So all these things come into it. It's the same within Napoleonics. You get the French columns are particularly good and very mobile, and they tend to move on and take a lot of punishment before they crumble. The British have a better shooting factor. And then if you play French Indian in a different period, you see what I mean? It's all different periods have these slight nuances, which I think adds something to it, but it's still that familiar rule set.
True.
Yes,
basically. So I think it's how far down the familiarity goes, I guess, is my point. And I remember there was a phase, you probably remember, Kaiser, there was a phase where you could buy these rule sets that claimed they would cover everything from biblical time right the way through to, I don't know, musket time or what have you, and literally every period under the sun, and they were terrible.
Because you just had homogenous units.
Yeah, and you might as well have just had blocks of just things moving around. It didn't really matter what they were.
They encourage. That's what they encourage you to do. Yeah. And
I hated all that, because that was, to me,
it was
the fun
flavor.
of it. It's the flavor. It's having the figures, and when you look at that unit, you go, "Oh, that's a whole load of hairy ass barbarian infantry coming at me." You know exactly what they are, and I know that those things are really nasty. I need to avoid them.
So for me, you see, I'm because I hear you, and trying to synthesize a little bit of what you said, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the rule that you don't need to change is roll to hit, roll to do damage. However you do that, move, shoot, do your morale. If you're not doing that, it better be better. And when I move, if I don't move 6 inches on a 4-foot table, it's going to take me longer or less time to get to the other side of the board. And that's going to really change how the game plays out. I'm not saying every unit should move 6, but I think you need to know that moving 6 means it's 4 turns from my deployment zone to yours. And that's kind of how we want and expect a game to play out in terms of that amount, space to movement thing. But the bits that really matter, if you want to make the difference, is if you look at a system like, if you look at something like Bolt Action, and I'm not a massive fan of it, but it's done a very good job of saying everybody's the same, but these are the flavor components.
Yeah.
So if you're taking it, basically he's taken old Warhammer rule set and said, yeah, but in this period, firing for suppression is really important. So we've got this pinning mechanic and the issuing of orders. It's about low-level command decisions, initiative, and suppressive fire far more than it is about killing things. And if a dude has got his head down behind a stone wall, you're never going to kill him in this system. But you move that over to Napoleonics, then you start saying, like, actually shooting is pretty much like a one-time thing before you fight, and it's about if you're fighting there. But then the Napoleonic periods I find again are really interesting, because we think about the ideas that are really define the Napoleonic period about the elan and the impact of the charge, but it clearly changes during the course of the war.
Oh yeah,
because the 1812 campaign and beyond, the French, this kind of approach of, you move up in a big column, you take a shot, you charge into them, and they basically run away. That doesn't happen anymore, and Napoleon is now losing.
Well, I think even, without going down too depth into the whole period, I think, even further within the period, if you look at the sort of early revolutionary period, it's still very linear tactics. It was all very formalized as a battlefield, and what Napoleon and the French did completely transformed it. And then
we're not fighting like that. We're just coming at you, bro.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have you, and you better not want us coming into your close combat. And most often the troops went, you know what? I don't want a whole load of garlic breathing Frenchies coming straight at me, and they ran away. But then, like always happens in these things, people work out what they're doing and they start to copy it. And so you see, as the period goes on, other armies replicating it to some degree. At the same time, you have the French quality of troops going down and down and down, because more and more of them are being killed or fighting in different fronts, and they don't have the troop numbers anymore to do it. So I think it's and again, this is where you'll have, I'm sure you all have arguments with the sort of real diehard gamers, historic gamers who, kind of want to replicate everything to the nth degree. And they'll argue that rule sets like Black Powder and others just
don't do that,
aren't real, because they're just, it isn't the real period. But it's all about flavor, and it's all about, if you're lucky to get a gaming night once a week, you want it to be a good fun experience, don't you? You want to have a laugh with your mates, and that's more important. So the flavor is important, but also having a good fun game is more important. So there's compromises in what they do. So that familiarity allows you to have that, and I think that's important. It's always that balance: historical versus authenticity versus playability between and fun.
Yeah. And in terms of so the bits where you run into problems, because I read quite a bit about the Peninsular War as a kid, because that's what you do, right? You've got the airfix figures of the British and French soldiers. You know, so where did these guys fight? You read about the Peninsular War. But one of the ways that you know, most of the Continentals moved from a linear system to fighting to more densely following the French system. We're going to fight in columns. We're going to charge. We're going to kill things. The British were completely different system. We would fight in a line. We'd fire off a couple of volleys, and then we would charge in a line. Saying,
but you remember
that's a response to being charged. So that doesn't work in this system.
No, but it's then again that's that was a reflection of the sort of army that the British built. It was a smaller, higher quality, more professional in many ways armies. Whereas the French principle was mass conscription, shove as many people, and you shove them in a big column, so them all stand together and walk at the enemy. It's pretty simple to do. Whereas if you're teaching somebody how to fire a musket bloody quickly, it's a lot harder to do. So
absolutely,
but I think that's again is that flavour thing, right? You have to have that. And if you look
essentially, you could argue that by the time you hit 1812, they're deploying so many regiments around the world that just how well trained are those British troops?
Well, I mean, you're right. Yeah.
At that point, Wellington had proved that it worked, and I think that there has to be a lot of credit to that. And if there hadn't been another commander to put tactics in place that worked, have we fallen back on the column?
Well, there's, I mean, yes and no. But then if you look at what's his name, Moore, who was killed in the early phase of the Peninsular War. I mean, he was the main engine that drove the development of the Napoleonic British Army that then spanked the French in Peninsula. I mean, he built the Light Brigade up. So he was killed.
Beresford? Sorry, I missed that bit.
No,
Moore.
John Moore.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was killed in, I forget which date it was, but as they retreated back into Portugal.
Yeah, the retreat to Corunna.
That's it. Yeah. And it was only because he died that Wellington got the command of the army.
Well, he didn't, did he?
Well, no, he was.
He only got command because he was ashore before the oldies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, the army was there. Now, definitely Wellington had an amazing ability at picking ground. He knew where to fight, and he knew the capability of his troops. I'm not going to belittle anything he did. Jesus, he was one of the most successful generals there was. But he kind of
beat Napoleon, and there's not many people that can say that.
No, and you could have that, but you could have the whole argument about how effective Napoleon was at Waterloo.
At that point. Well, he had piles, didn't he? So that's the problem.
Supposedly, he wasn't a well man.
John.
Yeah.
Napoleon left the field to try and take a poop, at which point Ney tosses away all the heavy cavalry. Napoleon comes back like, what are you doing, you muppet?
What the hell are you playing at?
Ney is you, by the way, John. Ney is you in the Napoleonic Wars. He's the ginger guy who's an idiot.
Going back to where this started, the point that Dom raised, and I think somebody raised it in the comments as well, is about what the point of the battle is. What are you trying to achieve with your fire, with your, like if you like medieval ones, they turned up, shook hands at the end, the character was dead, and decided to do one, at a pre-arranged battlefield.
That might be how it appears in some novels. That is not how medieval warfare works at all.
In some periods it did, but not in many. It didn't happen in the War of the Roses, that's for sure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there were definitely some periods that it was much more pre-arranged kind of setup. But yeah,
and certainly the advent of the rifle brought around the moral question about killing people. Now you can kill people from X number of yards. Is that murder? Whereas before, with the musket, it was accidental.
It was. You were trying to do it. This is quite an unlikely outcome that you actually kill him. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Guys, we are approaching the 10-minute mark, so if you have missed it, we have got some 12mm pair of Victrix Cromwell tanks, which is a new thing that they've just started doing, a new range. It's not been covered much on it because I think they've just released it kind of during the lockdown. There's a pair of Cromwell tanks that can be yours. You need to say Quinns, Quinns, in the comments, because that is the rugby team that Dom's shirt is supporting. We're just talking about, you know, the proper wargamer grognardy stuff about how wargaming doesn't do it right or does do it right, or what that's all about. So the bit I was trying to get to with the British infantry thing, if we could go back.
What's happened to your microphone?
Has my microphone gone off?
You sound very quiet, mate.
It's fallen down, isn't it? Is that better?
That's much better.
Yeah, it fell down the side of the chair. So the point I was trying to get to, though, is if you get a tactic like that, and you mentioned pike and shot era dragoons before, they're not going to work within that normal, I make a move, I take a shot, I then resolve my morale or command effects, because they're a bit more dynamic within those phases and do things a bit differently. Or your pike and shot, your shot is trained, it's going to be forward until it gets into the melee can ranges or cavalry, at which point they're going to pull back. They need an extra movement phase or whatever. So, but this is where the nuance in your rules come in. You just have a special rule for that. So British infantry being charged by French, they don't just roll to make a closing fire roll. If they crit on their closing fire, then they countercharge. So, you know, you just create a new rule. And I'd much rather see that, not rules where everybody can do all of the rules, but rules where each army's got 4 or 5 unique rules to that army in that period.
Yeah.
It's not British Napoleonics that's got it. It's the army in Spain in 1809 has this rule, because this is what the army's like right now.
Cool. Yeah.
That's what I want to say.
Right. That's the garnish.
But keep your moving, your shooting, your morale rules. Keep them simple and put that uniqueness into the way they play, and that's going to make your games feel quite different, I think. And your armies play, more importantly, play differently. This is the problem I have with bolt action, is it doesn't have enough of that, and one army plays very much like the next, unfortunately. It's a very same, and in one battle plays very much. You need to be looking at your table, your terrain very closely if you want different games of bolt action from one week to the next.
But then I think partly the rule systems are dictated by how they are planned out. So it feels like bolt action is set up to be a tournament type game. It's designed for, you know, 1,000 points going head to head, one person mano a mano kind of thing, as opposed to you hear of something Black Powder, and you know when Rich and the Perrys talk about how that came about, it was because they wanted a damn good fun game to play in an evening where they could get a result,
and it was quick.
But it had enough of the flavour to make it entertaining. Now, of course, you can play that competitively if you want, but that wasn't the fundamental reason for building it. And I always think the rule system, you learn a lot from a rule system by what their fundamentals are about. Is it a competitive rule system, or is it a fun rule system, or is it an entirely historic rule system? You know, designed to be really number crunching because you want it to be authentic as much as you can. And I think personally, that's the difference in those sort of systems. I think bolt action is great. I love it. I really enjoy bolt action. It's one of my favorite games.
I think it's easier to house rule a tournament system to an enjoyable system, like Kaiser's talking, with different rules for different countries, than it is to turn a fun system to a tournament system.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So go on, Dom.
No, I was going to say things like Sharp Practice, for instance, which I like very much. They have exactly that rule that you're talking about, Kaiser, with the British infantry. Have a rule called Thin Red Line. Right. So if you play a certain, so it runs on command cards. So if you play a command card, I can't remember. Different regiments have the capability in different ways, but basically the British can volley and then charge.
Right.
And that replicates that exact system, but not all their troops can do it. And
just the regulars or whatever.
Just the regulars. Yeah, and if you go to something like the or there isn't an official, or some of the unofficial lists there are for things like the Belgians and what have you. They don't have that capability because that wasn't how they fought. So you know, I think that for me is a good idea. But I think to your point on bolt action, it's a vanilla system. Everything is pretty much the same. It's just Russians get an extra unit and Germans get an extra dice on the machine gun, and if their officers dies, then come back, or you know. But it's still a damn fun game. I think I really enjoy it. But then again, you could go into all the different mission books and pull out all kinds of special rules if you wanted to, because they do that as well.
Yeah. So that Lee Brown's an interesting one because it brings up a broader questions, and it's hard to balance properly when it comes to country-specific rules. And you're absolutely right. The more this is the Warhammer problem, is how many points is this rule worth? Because you've got lots of them. Yeah. But I think one of the things. Did you ever play Shaco? So Shaco, an Artie Conliffe, it's kind of one of the earlier rule systems, which was looking at rules differently, trying to create a new type of war game, right from after WRG type stuff from Warhammer. And I'm not saying its core mechanics are brilliant. They're definitely, they've got flaws. But one of the things that it had was it said, if you play Russians, this is the army you get. And if you play French, this is the army you get. And it wasn't that you got a division or a brigade, you could still, but you got what was broadly speaking a division for those armies. And then it had another table which said these are the additional units that you can pick from, and we agree with your opponent. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 extra choices. And so what it meant was if you played French, you did get a mixture of first and second rate infantry, but you did have access to guard cavalry in very small quantities, or you could have what was effectively a cavalry division, which was a load of rubbish cavalry. But the Russians might not have access to a big squad, a big force of light cavalry. And it seemed to me to be one of the ways that it addressed the imbalances was saying there was a core force and then there was a certain number of choices that you got to make. So you still got a customized army, but not the freer you are to build your armies in systems. I think the much more difficult it is to balance. Much more difficult. But
it's like when you go to a club or a convention or what have you, and you turn up and they say, "Here's your army." You know, you've got no choice over it. You know, that's your army. Go and play with it. And some people love it. Some people absolutely hate it. And I guess it's that sort of, are you the sort of person that loves spending weeks poring over the rule books and the different army lists to build the perfect army list that, you know, or even the one that reflects a particular campaign you want to fight? Or are you one who just wants to have a damn good laugh and actually the challenge, if you like, of can I get my crappy old troops to stand up against a massive wave of high quality troops, for instance? You know, is that going to give you fun? It's all fun at the end. We're all playing with toy soldiers at the end of the day.
And I like scenarios. The problem with scenarios, particularly is in the broader wargaming sense, is my collection doesn't necessarily match the scenario. And for something I'm only going to play like once, do I want to go and buy an extra 50 figures, paint them up specifically to play this scenario? Because if I change the scenario to fit with my collection, I'm still playing the same game that I was otherwise.
Yeah.
You know, we are almost out of time, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to give you another moment to type Quins in the chat, QUINNS, if you want to win the Victrix Cromwell tank. It's coming in a moment. If you haven't seen Dom's channel, Boots on the Table with Dom, or indeed the Plastic Crack podcast, which he does with his fellow celebrities, they do that on a Monday night, and it rotates between them, so it doesn't come from the same place each week. So who else?
Like to keep you guessing. We like to keep
who
you
else
guessing.
do they need to look for, Dom? Let's.
So you need to look at Seventh Son. I'm sure you've seen Seventh Son, Martin, who does lots of medieval and English Civil War amongst other stuff. He's one of the hosts. There's Ken on Miniature Wargaming Warriors, who does lots and lots of bolt action and increasing Napoleonics coming out of his little bottom. And then Steve, who is on Point HQ, who's just the master of everything to do with the Second World War, and particularly Germans and kit bashing stuff. If you're not already subscribing to all those, I would thoroughly recommend them all. but mine mostly, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And if you've not looked at Boots on the Table with Dom, we haven't said it yet. It's surprising it hasn't come up. But he does a lot of painting log videos, especially at the moment, because that's pretty much all we can do, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
But he starts every video by saying, I haven't really got that much done this week, and it's just like 10 models.
It's become my joke, my little sort of catchphrase, mate.
And you watch it thinking, right, he's done 10 pikemen, that's all right. And saying, no, 4 minutes into the video, I was like, oh yeah, and I did these Hanoverians for my Napoleonic, and then I painted this elephant for my Carthaginian. It's like, you've done 40 miniatures in a week, mate, and you said you haven't got much done.
Yeah, but I've got to do something to try and keep ahead of the landslide that is the stash pile that just keeps falling over every time I go into any room. How do
you describe your pile of shame? I'm a big fan. I'm old school. I like to call it the lead mountain, even though
I'm exactly the same, Kaiser. Yeah, exactly.
It's the lead mountain, even though most of it's resin and plastic.
Even though there's virtually no lead in there at all. Although there might be buried at the very bottom some very old figures that may well still be lead for all I know. But it's the lead mountain.
And Callum has been working on his steampunk tank, which is. Do you want to tell him a little bit about that and show him, because you've been doing some videos on this, haven't you, Callum? In one of your kit bashes.
Yeah, I've. Here we go. Been combining a couple of kits together to build a steam-powered.
Look at that
tank.
beast.
There's a little plastic tray in there, isn't it? In a whippet.
Yeah, so it's a 135 scale whippet and a couple of Dapol locomotives. So, and I just finished up a plucky crewman for them today, whilst on the stream. So
very cool.
That is awesome.
Has he got a bucket? I mean, that's how you go to war, isn't it? With a bucket.
No, he's got the ammunition for the Gatling gun.
Oh, right. Okay. And is that kind of like a diesel punk thing inspiration there, yeah?
Steampunk. So
steampunk, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when I do the final reveal, which I hope will be the weekend coming, I'm going to be doing the story I've written with it as well. So hopefully that will reveal more.
Oh, that goes back to the last episode where the question was, if somebody had some background for an army, would you want to listen to it? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you come up with there, Callum. I may or may not choose him.
That's why I asked in the comments, because of that question. I said, do people actually want to listen to this or not?
Oh, right.
Well, they can come over and have a look now, can't they? This week's winner is Team Clueless Games. Not Clueless Mike, who's on here. Nick from Team Clueless Games, which is a related channel. Well done, mate. We will get that to you. Did you make much progress tonight, Dom? Where did you get to?
I'm just about finished my little tank.
Did you put decals on it while we were watching?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, I hate doing decals.
He's only got a couple because he's only tiny, so I can't put too many on him. But yeah, he just needs a wash and he'll be done. That's finished. Another one done.
And is that going to be? Are you going to play bolt action? Or are you just trying to get it off the to-do list?
Well, I know we're coming to the end, but I am driven entirely by what I'm playing. So we played a few games over Zoom of bolt action, and we played some early war Russians against Japanese. And I remembered I had this in the stash, so I thought I'd get this out and paint it. So
I think that might be a bit later.
T17? No, it's fairly early war.
Is it? I know the T60 is. Because if you're talking about the Jap, is it 1936? Anyway, that
whatever.
Doesn't matter. You just get it. It's cool, right? Johnny B, where did you get up to? What did you do?
I painted the base coat of 3 hoplites for their skin. Sorry, I painted the skin on 3 hoplites.
Skin on 3 hoplites.
Well done.
Because you're getting quite into the ancients thing now. 28mm ancient.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's the SPQR, the vibe off of that. I bounced off of that, and I thought, well, Mortal Gods is a very small model count game, and why not?
I have avoided talking about SPQR while we got Dom on, because it was him that basically made me realize the previous edition was trash. But I'm quite excited about the changes that they've made, and it looks good. Are you going to be giving it another go, Dom?
I will do. Yeah, if I can persuade some of the guys that I persuaded to play the first edition, because we all went, yeah, it's great, let's play it, and we played about 5 games and it just went in the bin after that. So if I can persuade them to try again, we'll give it another shot for sure. Yeah.
All right, guys. That was us, Team Clueless Games. Congrats for winning. Next week, we have got Gamers with Coffee on the show. They're a husband and wife team. And if we're really lucky, they might even argue on the show, which is always fun. I'm only joking.
Awesome.
Thank you for watching, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.